The narrative project is not just about pictures, it's also about words. And it's very important for all of us who are both serving communities and also building a constituency in this country to support meaningful social change to understand how our words have impact on those we wish to reach. Research shows that the vast majority of the public is skeptical about what can we really do to impact change outside the U.S. And there is some negative downturn that we need to be mindful of. But Interaction has brought you a solution. So the new narrative project, which many of you engaged with and many of you have worked on with us, is about bringing those themes of empowerment and local ownership to our work and to our messaging. We're pleased to unveil today, there should be a screenshot, narrativeproject.org, which will provide you with the kind of assets and information that you can use in your day-to-day work to really integrate what research has proven to be effective ways to talk with the public about your work. This is not about sugarcoating. This is not about not being transparent and accountable. It is about reaching our audiences and making sure that we are credible interlocutors on behalf of the work that we are doing. So please go to thenarrativeproject.org to learn more about this important work and how you can participate in it. I'm going to shift gears now, because our session today is about how the global digital revolution has transformed how we communicate, collaborate, advocate, educate, coordinate, and deliver programs. Kickstarter and other crowdfunding apps have changed the way in which groups around the globe relate to one another. Technology and social entrepreneurs are engaged in this work with us. The rapid adoption of new technologies has created new networks, markets, and demands for private and public actors in the developing world. We're going to begin today's session on this topic with a quickfire talk by Mei Chang. Mei is the Chief Innovation Officer and Executive Director of the United States Global Development Lab at USAID. This is the newest bureau at USAID. The lab aims to transform global development through science, technology, innovation, and partnerships, and has more than 20 years of engineering and leadership experience in Silicon Valley for Google, Apple, Intuit, and SGI. And please come up and join us. We're excited to have you.
Good morning, everyone. Whoops. The digital age has ushered in not only new breakthrough technologies, but also brought along with it new approaches that are more open, more data-driven, more agile, and more sustainable. This presents us with I think we don't have I guess I have the clicker. This presents us with a unique opportunity and a responsibility to reinvent development for the 21st century. Today, I'd like to share with you our vision at the Global Development Lab for what that might look like. This is a vision that involves you, all of you, because the one thing we know for sure is that we can't do this alone. We're going to transform development by tapping into the expertise and knowledge that people like you have from years of working on the ground. We're going to transform development by empowering all of you to innovate, to learn, and to adapt. And we're going to transform development by recognizing that the approaches we've used in the past are insufficient for us to reach our goals of the future. I'm guessing all of you have seen your share of RFPs or RFAs. Don't worry, this is not what we have in mind. Traditional development practices were developed in the analog age, and they're just too rigid. We design our procurements behind our walls, have you scramble to submit your proposals within a few months, Select just one of those, and then run with it for 3 to 5 years. So this isn't exactly what I think of as a recipe for innovation, agility, or performance. So what if development and design looked more like this? This is a co-creation workshop for designing interoperable health information systems in the Ebola-affected countries of West Africa. We brought together key stakeholders through what we call a broad agency announcement, or BAA, and looked at how we could design solutions together. Because we believe that working together should be less of a competition and more of a collaboration. So what might that look like? First of all, rather than us throwing a procurement over the walls, we'd like to design with you. Second, rather than picking one solution and expecting it to be perfect, we want to try several and figure out which ones work best. Third, rather than relying on our instincts, we want to use rigorous evidence to prove the impact of our interventions. And finally, rather than expecting our programs to end in 3 or 5 years, we want to design for long-term sustainability from the start. These are the 4 core elements of what we think development of the 21st century might look like. So I'd like to share with you a few examples of how we're putting pieces of this into practice today. Let me start with open innovation. The idea with open innovation is we want to cast as wide a net as possible because we believe we want to tap into the ingenuity of students, of local entrepreneurs, of smaller NGOs, and of the private sector, because we believe the best ideas can come from unexpected places, and particularly by bringing diverse minds together. We do this through our BAA, our Grand Challenges, and DIV, or Development Innovation Ventures. All of these are open innovation windows with a low barrier to entry. For example, our Saving Lives at Birth Grand Challenge sought new solutions that could reduce the incidences of maternal and infant mortality. One of our submissions came from Jorge Odon, who invented a device that could be used to assist in obstructed birth and has the potential to be safer than forceps. Now, this is the kind of thing that we could have envisioned and built into an RFA. And what was interesting is that Jorge Odon turns out to be an Argentinian car mechanic. Next, let's talk about data and iteration. Traditional M&E is slow, and it's oriented towards accountability. Think midline and endline evaluations. We want to get data fast, and we want to use that data to drive rapid feedback loops that help us drive learning and increase our performance. New digital tools help us to do this, but the key is that we listen to our users and that we empower our field staff. We're putting this into action in Mali, where USAID has a program to bring normalcy back to Mali after an armed uprising in 2012. In this environment, community feedback is essential for us to avoid exacerbating underlying tensions. So we set up a hotline so we could keep our fingers on the pulse of the community. And we learned some really important things. For example, we heard that some of our grantees were perceived to be political actors, and some of our activities didn't feel inclusive. This enabled our field staff to change course. Next, I want to talk about evidence. We use rigorous evidence to determine what works and what doesn't work. For example, DIV is a tiered evidence-based funding model where we invest small amounts in new risky ideas and then tier up our investment over time more proven. Through DIV, we funded the scale-up of chlorine dispensers installed at community water sources in Mali in order to prevent the transmission of diarrheal diseases. We did this because randomized control trials proved that compared to using chlorine, the traditional use of chlorine tablets that people could buy at kiosks, chlorine dispensers increased the usage of chlorine to purify water by 10x, from 5% to 50%. Finally, and I think most importantly, I want to talk about scale and sustainability. Serving tens or hundreds of thousands of people is important. We want to be more ambitious. We want to serve tens or hundreds of millions. In order to do so, we're going to need to ensure that solutions have an engine that can continue to drive growth over time, whether that be a market-driven business model, government adoption, or some hybrid. Because one thing we know for sure is that grant funding ends over time, and we don't want our solutions to end with it. A great example of this is off-grid electric, which is bringing solar power to rural households across Tanzania. They're doing this by using mobile money to create a new business model where they can charge their users just a few cents every day to pay off their home solar systems over time. What this means is that off-grid is able to recoup their costs and make a profit, then plow that back into serving more customers. It's also meant that our initial investment in off-grid has been incredibly catalytic and has enabled them to bring in almost $100 million of private debt and equity. Today, off-grid has lit over 100,000 homes, and they're aiming to reach 1 million by the end of next year. So this is our vision for what development could look like in the 21st century. We're starting to put some of these pieces into practice, but we know we don't have all the answers. We also know that change takes time. So we want your help. So I want to end by asking you to consider joining us and working with us and working together by doing 5 things. 1, consider participating in a co-creation workshop. 2, send us your best ideas through our open innovation windows. 3, look at how you can build data feedback loops into your program design. 4, if you're a large NGO, think about how you can use your platform to help scale proven solutions from smaller NGOs or social entrepreneurs. And 5, think about how you can build your programs to be sustainable in the long term. I hope that one day we're going to be able to think of the monolithic, multi-year RFAs as a thing of the past. So please join us and help us bring global development into the 21st century. Thank you.